What's up, y'all? One Piece One Life here, and guys, have you guys ever thought about what will happen at the end of the story? No, seriously, the final war, the end of days, what's gonna happen? I feel like everybody in the community is just trying to throw darts at a dartboard and see what sticks. And I think that for certain characters, it's easier to figure out what's gonna happen to them than for others. Now, as for me, the people who I find to have the most interesting potential storylines going forward are the final 12. In case you're somehow not caught up to what I'm talking about, the final 12 refers to 12 characters who Oda in chapter 1122 sets up as the final 12 most important characters to the climax of the series. Based on paneling, we can infer that these are the people who are going to be the most crucial to telling out the story of One Piece. So the question I'm trying to answer today is, what exactly is going to happen to every single one of these characters? Where do I think their story is going to take them by the end? And some of them are going to be pretty easy, while some of them it's essentially entirely headcanon. But before we get to breaking down the end games of certain characters, y'all, please do something for me. Like the video, subscribe to the channel for more One Piece content just like this every week, and share it around with all your friends who love the series. You know what we always say here, let's get it going. Also, make sure you subscribe to me and my boys over at CSY. We doing our big one over there. Now, when you look at this big list of characters, who else better to start off with than Monkey D. Luffy himself? So, Luffy's gonna be the Pirate King, right? That's obvious. No one's gonna hear me say that and be shocked like, oh my goodness, but wait, I thought, like, we all know that this is gonna happen. But then you gotta remember, that's not Luffy's true dream. Being Pirate King is the stepping stone to allow him to achieve his full dream. And while we still to this day do not know exactly what it is, I personally subscribe to the very popular theory that Luffy's dream is to have a huge party with everyone in the world. I mean, you think about it, it fits. It's definitely ridiculous enough to warrant the reactions that the Straw Hats gave when Luffy told them, as well as Ace, Sabo, and even Whitebeard when Roger had the same dream. Plus, they close out every major victory with a feast. So, doesn't it make sense that the largest victory should come with the largest feast? Then I do think that that's not where Luffy's journey ends. I think that he's gonna want to continue to travel around, and so that's exactly what he and his crew will do. He'll continue exploring the Grand Line and potentially even some places beyond that. The moon? Space perhaps? I mean, we know that space exploration is a thing, so screw it. We got space pirates in 5 Piece. And then another popular theory that I've heard about Luffy's end goal is that he's gonna contract an incurable disease. Very likely the same incurable disease that Gold Roger had. And then following along from that, because he has the disease like Roger, he would have to turn himself in. Now I have to agree with this. I do strongly think that he will get some sort of incurable disease. But I don't think he's going to turn himself in, because I believe that that's where Chopper comes into play. He's going to cure the incurable disease, and in so doing, cement his name as the world's greatest doctor or the cure-all, which is of course his dream. But since we just talked about Luffy, let's talk about his evil parallel, Blackbeard. Now I definitely think that Blackbeard is set for defeat at the very end of the war between pirates on the shores of Laugh-Tale. This would be the climactic battle for the One Piece and the title of King of the Pirates. Though of course, as I explained in my Emu or Blackbeard video that I made 2 weeks ago now, that is not the end of the story in my opinion, as we have largely spiraled from just a fight between pirates. Now I do think that prior to that, he'll get a big win against another top tier that we're about to talk about, just so that we can see what he can truly do. So then I think that Luffy defeats him, but in keeping with the fact that Luffy himself doesn't kill his enemies, I think that he gets like at some point knocked into the sea. And then the logic here being that under normal circumstances, his crew would be able to drag him out like any other crew would. But the problem is, because they're all Devil Fruit users, they will all sink to the bottom. No one's able to help him. Which symbolically shows that their way of acquiring power through stealing and conniving and trickery and deceit, ultimately that failed them because that wasn't the right way to get power. Speaking of characters who I think may die, let's talk about Shanks. Now Shanks is definitely set to die before the end of One Piece. There's just too many death flags for him. For one, he's too much of a stabilizing force in the world. In order for Luffy to be able to take his role as a protagonist and be the major contributor on the good guy side at the end of the war, I think that Shanks can't be present there. Second, it would do wonders for Luffy's personal character development. And if you can't see it, just remind yourself that Shanks is the reason why Luffy became a pirate and is where he is now. And then third is, he's an anime mentor. Things never go well for the anime mentors. With all that said, as most people know by now, I subscribe to the theory that Shanks is going to die at the hands of Blackbeard. I do think that we'll see a battle between the both of them where neither of them are holding back. But then in the midst of that battle, Shanks gets struck down. Now, as I mentioned, it would be really great for Luffy's character development, but I also think that it would just show that Oda is serious about wrapping up this story. Gone are the days where he's refusing to kill off characters and instead just writing in the craziest of plot holes. Now, since we just talked about Shanks, let's talk about his sworn brother and fellow apprentice, Buggy. I think that Oda has a great opportunity with Buggy's character here. Considering that Buggy is known for continuously falling up, keeping with that motif, I think it would be really crazy if Buggy was actually the first person to be declared Pirate King. And then I always wonder, do y'all ever think that Buggy's actually ever gonna be found out? Like, are we ever gonna expose him as a fraud? I think that if Oda is planning that, it would be great to have him be the Pirate King first, and then right after that be exposed as a fraud. The comedy there would be insane. Like, imagine, after people find it out, all of his followers abandon him. Nobody's following him no more. And like, you just gotta think back to all the times that Buggy's like, en masse, his crew is so disillusioned by him. So the fact that the veil is finally being pulled back and they're seeing him for what he really is, but low-key with how memeable he is, I don't know if Oda's gonna do that to him. Next up, talking about some of the Marine characters, I think that Akainu is definitely set for a defeat sometime around the final war. And he definitely will not be Fleet Admiral by the end of the series. I personally say that he shouldn't even be Fleet Admiral right now. I think that he's gonna have a fight where we can properly see what he can actually do, and then he'll be defeated and he just won't be part of the New World Order. Like, his personality is just too brash and angry for the new world that most of the good guy Marines are trying to create. But hey, listen, I can't wait to see Akainu actually get active though. Like, we just had Gear 5 versus Kizaru in the anime, and that was stellar. So if Akainu can move anywhere as much or even better than Kizaru did, then we're gonna have a problem on our hands. Now, Kobe's case is very interesting. I made a video a couple months back talking about how I believe that it makes sense for Kobe to develop Conqueror's Haki. If I'm right and he actually does, then his potential by the end of the series can literally shoot through the roof. Because he's a part of Sword, there's no doubt in my mind that at some point, somehow, he and Luffy will be fighting side by side. In fact, an interesting theory with that is, what if Kobe and Luffy team up to fight against Blackbeard? With this instance paralleling the God Valley incident where Roger and Garp teamed up to fight Rocks. It's like the successors literally carrying the wheels of the predecessors. And then in terms of epilogue stuff, I don't think that Kobe will be the Fleet Admiral by the time that we're done with this story. Just because I think that it's too soon and there's probably a lot of other people who deserve it more. Like, personally, I think that Fujitora will be Fleet Admiral by the end. I think that's actually a great direction for the Marines to go. But I definitely see Kobe getting to the Admiral class. And then he's also carrying the will of Garp, as we know. So that means that we can expect incredible things from him as the future hero of the Marines. Speaking of someone who may be suspected to be in Sword, let's talk about Aokiji. Now, I think that Aokiji has potential death flags on it. Nowhere near as much as Shanks does, but you know, there's some stuff here and there. For one, we all know that he's gonna turn on the Blackbeard pirates at some point, right? This doesn't need to be said. Personally, I do subscribe to the idea of Aokiji either being in Sword or potentially even being one of the founders of Sword. But even if you don't believe that, just remember that the entire point of Blackbeard's crew and Aokiji joining Blackbeard's crew is that, yo, we're not actually friends here, but everybody got their own agendas, their own things that we're trying to complete, and it's just easier to do that if you're in a collective. So I definitely see Kuzan betraying Blackbeard for his own goal, but then that brings up the question, what is his goal? And I'm not gonna lie, it's something I've been thinking of for a while, but I don't have an answer yet. So if you do, let me know in the comments. Now let's talk about somebody who literally has not done anything, ever. Dragon. Now I think that Dragon is slated to be Garling's final fight. The way that he's being stacked up right now, it looks like Garling may be the second strongest person on the entirety of the world government side after Emu himself. And Dragon is the last true top tier that we haven't seen in any form of extended combat, or any combat at all. We have never seen Dragon in a fight. It's always just witty one-liners and looking east. In fact, look, I can do an impression of him right now. The day is cold. But best believe, if there's ever a time for Dragon to get active, it's gonna be in the final war. Then I believe that after overthrowing the Celestial Dragon system, he, Vivi, and some of the other good guy sovereigns will come together and kind of curate the type of world government that they want for the world. One that's hopefully not ruled by oppression, fear, and slavery. Now as for his subordinate Sabo, I think that he has decent potential in the final war. I subscribe to the idea, as many of you do, that Sabo's final fight is actually going to be with Akainu. In fact, it's almost like Ace himself is getting revenge because, as we all know, Sabo is just an Ace clone. And then after that, if he doesn't die, I guess he's just gonna, continue to liberate islands, fight the good fight? Like, I don't know, actually. Like, what do y'all think that Sabo is gonna do once the story's over? In fact, will the Revolutionary Army even exist after that? Now let's move on to some of the villains of the Final 12, starting with the Supreme Overlord, Imu. And y'all, I'm not gonna lie, Imu is one of the easiest to kind of try and think about, because very obviously, they need to be defeated. They're about to be the final villain from the way that the story is setting them up. So of course, Gear 5 Luffy is about to take him out. I can already see the panels and just imagine how crazy this fight would be. Like, these guys may literally start fighting at a level that we can't comprehend, where they're literally like actually breaking past the manga panels and stuff like that. But the thing that we need to find out about Imu before or during the fight is we need to figure out how his story ties into the past. How does it tie into the Nerona family that we heard about from the Revolutionary Army? Are they literally the Sea Devil incarnate? How does their story tie into Joy Boy? And I have no doubt that we're gonna get those things because it ties into the Void Century flashback, but still, I just found that very important. As for his subordinate Garling, I think that Garling has a strong potential to die as well. As you see with the Gorosei on Egghead and even the God's Knights now on Elbaf, the main thing that we're gonna have to contend with is how the hell we're gonna get past their ultimate regeneration. Remember, even when Joy Boy's Haki managed to blast all of them out of their transformations, they did not immediately crumble, which means that their immortality wasn't affected by the Haki. At least it can kind of imply that. But like I said in the Dragon section, he's probably going to be Dragon's fight. And I think this will be a really good fight because of how strong Garling is. Where if you don't know how strong he is, go check on where I ranked him in last year's top 30. Now finally, for somebody who I couldn't include in the top 30 because he wasn't like really introduced to me yet, it's going to be Shamrock. Now bear in mind, we don't even know for certain that Shamrock is the silhouetted character that we see here in the Final 12. But I mean, it makes sense to me, and going off the basis that he is, I still think that he's gonna be a problem. In fact, last week's video was talking about how strong do we estimate Shamrock to be. Go ahead and check that one out after this one, y'all, please. It needs some help. And in that one, I said that it makes sense to me to think that Shamrock is at least Yonko level relative to Shanks. As I said in that vid, Shanks still needs a really great win for us to be able to see exactly what he can do before he dies to Blackbeard. So I think that Oda literally created Shamrock's character, giving Shanks a reason and a strong enough opponent to fight. But safe to assume, I don't think that anybody who's gonna be a World Noble or higher is surviving. Just because, like, that's the whole point of taking down the system. So I guess it's just gonna be like real life. Down with the rich. But I want to hear from y'all. Which of these characters' endgame stories that I came up with do you agree with? What else do you think may happen to him? Make sure to let me know all that and more in the comments below. Now that is the end of the video, y'all, but before we go, like it, subscribe, and share it around with all your friends who love the series, or anime and manga in general. Remember, I'm trying to build a community, but I need your help to do it. That's gonna be all for me. I'll catch you on the next one. And always remember, one piece, one life.